Welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder of Ticket Time Machine. Today we welcome Ryan Gordon to the show. Welcome to the Den.
Hey, glad to be here.
We're going to talk a lot about basketball. We're going to talk apparel, sneakers. It should be a great conversation. For the people in the audience who don't know who you are, give us just the quick intro and we'll get to it.
Sure. Well, I've been a fashion executive for about 20 years. I was formerly a sales director at Puma. I started Common Enemy about 3 years ago, and it was the opportunity to combine some different passions of mine. And it's the first performance basketball shoe working towards systemic change. I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more about what that means. But I'm a basketball fanatic. Definitely a game that's brought an enormous amount of joy and pleasure to my life. I certainly I have no delusions about how good I am, but I am one of those hustlers. I'm always on. I'm usually the people that I'm usually the kind of person that people tend to like to play with, but the other team tends to get really annoyed with.
Yeah, I bet. It's like me with tennis when I'm just like slicing everything and hack. Not that you're hacking, but it's hack tennis, the equivalent of just up in your face defense.
Sure.
Yeah, I get that. Why basketball? To go back to the beginning. Why basketball?
Yeah, that's a great question and an important one. Well, basketball for me, I think, well, for most people, it represents sort of like this. It's this perfect intersection of sport and culture and even artistry and passion and sort of baked into this beautiful American history over the last 70 to 100 years. And it seemed like for me the perfect opportunity to launch a mission-based brand that was focused on topics of social and economic justice, which has always been a bedfellow of the game in so many different ways with so many different heroes.
Do they do the best job of social justice, equity, systemic change? Do they do the best job out of the four leagues? It feels like they probably do. NFL maybe on the heels. What do you think?
Yeah, relatively speaking, I mean, within that context, compared to the other, yes. Yeah, they're better than most. There's obviously all these like confines and constructs that they're working in. A lot of them, corporately derived, but they could do better.
That's those limitations are imposed by them and what their other goals are.
Yeah,
we'll talk about the systemic change and trying to do good and be better. You always have the limitations of what your goals are, right? Money, morals, all that different type of stuff. So we'll get into that. But it does feel like the NBA does a little bit better job than the others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they're fortunate too. Like it kind of goes hand in hand with their target, audience too, right? It's a young, diverse, like city oriented, like highly like pop. The majority of the NBA franchises fall in, obviously like cities that have higher population density and, they tend to be.
Anyone can play basketball. It's Gary Goldman, one of my favorite comedians, has a funny thing. He said, why basketball? It's like it's basically the only sport that you can always practice on your own. You don't ever need anybody. So you have access to do it anytime you want, but also you don't have to be around other people, which is part of what he likes, just going out and shooting. I mean, that was one of the things I did, was just go out and shoot, get rid of some steam and frustration. For me, it was a good release.
Absolutely. It's the lowest barrier of entry of any sport.
But men, women, I mean, it really is the most equal. Like, there's no women's football league. There's a women's hockey league, but it's not professional.
Sure.
Softball is not anywhere near baseball, but I guess, and those are almost two different sports at this point, baseball and softball. So basketball is really it's the easiest to enter, and it's the most global and the worldwide, and everyone can play. It was soccer. It's like weird. Why are we not better at soccer? Everybody plays soccer. We played when we were kids. My friends have kids now. They still all play soccer. How are we not better at soccer?
Yeah, I grew up playing soccer too. And it's funny, there just seems to be this like fall off there's so much interest from an early age with kids, and then by the time they get to middle school, high school, it kind of tapers into these other team sports. I mean, listen, this is like a whole conversation for another show, but I don't know how much of it is cultural and other things going on, what the system looks like compared to a lot of European countries. And there's always this thing, it feels like every decade you're saying the same thing over and over. Like it feels like it's growing in popularity, right? Yeah. But I don't know the numbers to be sure, but it never really seems to get over that hump.
And even this whole wave with Messi coming, I mean, that'll end unless another superstar comes and saves the day. So we'll see about that. Why fashion? You talk about basketball; it's a big part of you. How'd you get into fashion?
Yeah, that was. I actually went to school for film, University of Colorado. I've always been really interested in storytelling. I got a chance to work for a startup footwear company coming out of college. That was definitely a departure from sort of the path that I had in mind. But I did see it as it was an up and coming brand, sort of competing. It was in the luxury space. It was competing against a lot of like 100-year-old plus, fashion, like European brands. And I thought it was a beautiful story. I thought, I loved getting tied into sort of an underdog story. I had some family that was involved. There was a component of that was really motivating to me. And so I went on the road in a sales capacity and really tried to grow the brand. At the time, it was a company called Gordon Rush. And I was with them for 10 years. And so it was incidental how I got into fashion, but it was a way to meet so many different people and really kind of hone like a business acumen that sort of applied to so many different types of consumer goods. And from there went into the sports fashion world with Puma, and then actually had a stint with an outdoor company too called Keen. I don't know if you're familiar with or not, Keen. They do, hiking boots, outdoor sandals, a lot of performance stuff, outdoor performance product. But, there's always something exciting about it. It's such an integral part of every people's life. And so many people, whether people care about it, don't care, everyone's involved in it in some degree. And I always felt like there was a way to sort of like hone the messaging of brands in the space to sort of like go into another, sort of like a 2.0 form of responsibility. Like there's been this, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. How important is that though? And I care about stories, and I'll probably give a shot, and that's the most important thing, right? Give a shot to a brand, a sneaker, apparel, but look, cost, name brand. I mean, that's how important is the story in the overall fashion industry now, or is that something that you're hoping to change and disrupt?
We're hoping to change it for sure. We're hoping in this day and age, the amount of sort of customer empowerment as it relates to the information that they have at their fingertips. We feel like we really want to be authentic in the space in a different type of way that I think people will resonate, that will resonate with people differently than buying this product will like we're using more recycled materials for this particular product, where it's kind of like an act that's sort of isolated to that particular purchase. And I want to clarify that those types of considerations on the parts of companies are extremely important. There's sort of this like notion of social amplification, right? If your neighbor buys, let's say, an electric car or solar panels or something, and then they influence another neighbor to look into that and see if it's cost effective. There's a value to that, a social value, right? Yeah. We applaud that, commend that. We want, kind of those issues to be front and center with us, but we wanted to look at something beyond sort of that isolated experience of the purchase and say, hey, what about where this money could go that could influence
impacting something instead of sort of just being around. Tom's is that, am I right? Tom's was the shoe company that sort of had like they donate pairs to kids in need or something.
Yeah, and exactly. And they had this mantra or motto, one for one. So you buy a pair and we give a pair, right? And this was like, they kind of had their sort of they took off around 2008, 2009. And it certainly resonated with a lot of people. And it was novel at that moment. There was also a lot of really dynamic marketing that was happening with them as well. But there was also this notion of the logistics. Where were these shoes going? Who were they going to?
How
What
about
was the
where are they
cost?
made? How about
Where
where?
Yeah, that's a component of it as well. And what's the how do you quantify that value, right? And of course, these are questions that we still certainly have. There's room for debate in our approach as well, and I welcome that debate. But we're definitely trying something much different than what Tom's was trying to do.
So let's talk about yours. This is your shoe right here.
Yes, sir.
It's a basketball shoe. I have full disclosure. I have not played in it yet, but I've worn it. It's very comfortable. It's a fitted shoe, right, with the tongue on top for you to slide in. Talk about the design.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned one of the first components. We wanted to make it as easy as possible to get on and off, right? I don't know if you recall, it was one of KD's finals with the Warriors, where his shoe just kind of came completely off the foot at one point. Not talking about the injury, but there was just a different moment where his shoe just flew off, and he put that thing back on, no lacing, like at all. And like I watched, and there was like I don't think he touched the shoe again. So the reality is that if you can get the fit and what we call the last perfect, right? That there's no reason that you have to be hunched over and trying to like spend all this time lacing up the shoe, right? It's a dual pull tab system, so you barely have to bend down. You just pop that thing right on, and you're snug enough to go right onto the court. So that was a big component. Traction was top of mind, obviously, through the whole process. So the grip is substantial. And
Better for outdoor or indoor, or
the majority of our wear testing was done indoor, but we did plenty of outdoor. And actually, that's been the surprise through the first 6 months of distribution, was that people absolutely loved it during the summer and the fall for outdoor wear.
and right now it's black.
Yeah, we wanted to launch strategically. Obviously as a startup, budgets are more restrictive. We're actually in the process of fundraising right now to be able to increase the product offering. But yeah, we felt like we've seen a lot of brands in the past that launch with every color under the sun, and we wanted to keep it as simple as possible and as universal and versatile as possible.
Okay, it's not a cheap sneaker, so you're going up against price. Nowadays, these companies when they have their new models, they sell their old models for about half price. You're right in line with about what a new model is. What's the strategy behind that? Is that going to lower as you guys scale a little bit more? Is that related to where you have to produce this because of the factor of doing good?
Yeah, absolutely. The price point we're very straightforward about the price point. Like the quality of the materials that we put into the product and the resources that we use kind of dictate the price. We're not baking in some sort of like astronomical margin or anything like that. This is just simply the way that the shoe is priced based off of the materials at hand. And we use expensive materials. I guess you could say, again, the word saying expensive might be relative, but you're right to say that the majority of basketball shoes are being sold at a lower price point. We're coming in right around what I'd say like upper to mid price point out of the gate, but then that's different from the reality, which is is that when one of the bigger brands marks down, that's when you start to see all those shoes show up on court. but
And
we
I'm
use
guilty of
yeah.
it myself. I go to the Nike outlet store. I got a gift card. I want to keep getting new stuff. I'll try it. I don't care about having the latest fashion necessarily, but I want a good sneaker. So that ultimately that's what matters, because then you'll go and say, I want the next one.
Absolutely. Well, we've got an incredible factory group that we use, and our head of product, Rob Purvey, is a legend in the industry. He worked on several Kobe signature products and sort of cemented his legacy through that process. He knows, he's been doing this for decades. We've all got probably 75 years plus of experience in this industry, and we put in thousands of hours in wear testing. And we felt like we really were close to perfecting something out of the gate here. The versatility of the product seems to be what players are resonating with the most. This is a shoe that is like, people are playing in, they're training in, they're wearing post-workout for recovery. You're wearing it to the gym, you're wearing it out of the gym. So you get a lot of legs out of the product. So I feel like that's part of the, that's part of the price relationship value.
Talk about versatility. This is a basketball sneaker, but are they just wearing it to wear? Because it's not like a high top per se, where you look silly walking around in a high top basketball, right? You don't wear you wear those like 3/4 or quarter or half quarter, whatever, to wear.
Yeah. So when we first launched last summer, for us, it's a small team. We were promoting among friends and family as much as possible. And we've got hundreds of people wearing the shoes that never played a day of basketball in their life. And, like we were shocked by the reception from an aesthetic standpoint, and also just from a activity standpoint. It was just being used. People were using it for everything and saying, "Oh, did you know? Like, why isn't this just a walking shoe? Or why isn't this or that? Or it's so cool. It's just this combination of a lot of different, like more sophisticated shoes out in the marketplace, like higher end shoes." I'm doing so good. This is my approach to seeing if I can get through the interview without naming one other competitor brand. Yeah. So I think that's the real trick of this whole thing, is recognizing, like, let's be real, the components that you need for a performance basketball shoe, for a successful performance basketball shoe, it's actually quite basic at the end of the day, but it's the nuance of these individual components, the traction, the fit, right? The cushion, the support. So you just have to get all these things perfectly balanced. And on the one hand, it's quite simple if you have the right tools, you have the right resources, you have the right people. But it's amazing still how many poorly fitting, poorly performing shoes get disseminated out, into the ether. I think part of that is just, frankly, that a lot of these companies do have, they've got these sales metrics, right? So it's like, you decide you're going to mark down a shoe because when you introduce the next one, you're going to get a bigger boost. And it's kind of like it sometimes can be a vicious cycle, but we're very much proponents of recognizing, like, the notion of less is more, right? We see guys that are wearing shoes that were first introduced 12, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not an area where technology is skyrocketing. Like, no. It's not what is it? The Moore effect, right? I mean, it's
the look, really, because all this stuff that's fancy on my shoes, they don't help anything.
Yeah.
My air bubble, right? All of that, it doesn't help anything.
Yeah, we wanted to be super careful about not over engineering, not over designing, and that takes experts to do. You know what I mean? But we're very proud of what we've accomplished.
Well, I want to talk about the partners, that they're the ones who benefit. 5% of each shoe goes to your partners, and you have a wealth of them. You can find it on the website that's here. We could talk about a little bit of them, but talk about more about the partners in general, what you're achieving to do. And then also talk about, you don't have a player associated with your sneaker. Is that a roadmap thing? Is that we're never going to do it? Because there's a lot of components that would actually bring in. It'd be great, right, to have AD your shoe, but there's a high cost to that. Now the sneakers got to be expensive, and then also they have to align with everything that you align with, which is very difficult to find.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's not, they're out there, and we want to learn from them. We want them to learn from us and learn from our nonprofit partners. That's what this is about. A lot of this is about education as much as it is about support for these nonprofits and mobilizing around them. We want to do what we do best. We want to support the nonprofits and the advocacy work that they do. But yeah, we definitely think there's room for professional athlete partners. We just are more focused on, like, there's the reality of marketing in 2024, right? And promotion, and how do you actually sell product? Like, how do you generate demand? I mean, there's the nitty gritty of that, right? And then there's the reality of, like, what's part of your mission, what's part of the story. And we're trying to kind of marry those two things. And I think, if you're authentic and if you're telling real stories, and if you obviously have a great product that's in need, and you're always going to have a great basketball shoe is always going to be in need. 25, 30 million people playing it every day in this country. But we really want to build stories from the ground up. We want to build them in communities. We're intent on telling the stories of local games across this country when the time comes. And there are going to be professional athletes, professional basketball players that will want to be part of those stories and could narrate or, make guest appearance in those stories. But this is about the game of basketball, less about an individual.
Well, let's talk about the partners. There's a wide range of partners. We have healthcare, fair wage, equality, with the Black Lives, I wouldn't say Black Lives Matter, but that movement of race, ending racism, gun control, a lot of it. How does someone know where they're? I mean, what if I'm for half of those things?
Sure, that's a great point.
All right, I'm for all of them. I'm basically for all of them. So I want to say that. But
there's no litmus test here. Yeah. That's a great point. I mean, we've gone back and forth over the years as we brought this brand to market to say, really, how many focal points should we have? And we really wanted to put everything through this very broad, but very sort of, like, in our mind, uncontroversial lens of public health, right? So public health is essentially what are big problems facing Americans.
Yeah, but none of that's uncontroversial, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, and there is the media representation, and there's the polling, and we know that a lot of these things like Medicare for All still poll substantially, like the vast majority of polls that come in show a majoritarian support for that particular cause. But no, I'm not blind to that reality. But I'm also a believer in the notion that it's really only 1%. Like, if 1% of folks in every congressional district can get engaged, and if we can help inspire a small percent of that 1% to get more engaged in a meaningful way, or learn a little bit more about tougher questions to ask the folks that are running for Congress this fall.
Yeah, people will say, like, you're giving $7 to this thing, big deal. But I think it's the education. I think it's the visibility. It's the movement for these things that's going to be more powerful than the money that you contribute, which the money will help. But I think I agree with you if that's what you're saying.
That's a great perspective. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think it's both. I think we want to get to a point where if you're talking about an individual feeling good, if you want to go back to that Tom's part of it, right? Yeah, I think people have to recognize that the sum is going to be greater than the individual parts, right? If we get to a certain size of revenue, then we really could conceivably have a dramatic impact on the longevity of these advocacy groups. But on the individual level, yes, some of the raising awareness for some of these issues and educating on some of these issues, I think, could be equal, if not more, critical.
I think I'm a good person. I think people would say that. I think I have been for a while, but I think there was a change when I started my company to be more aware of all that stuff and to fight harder. And I'm always for the greater good. That's where I sit. Um, I don't think the average person cares. I really don't. I think you don't have to, there's good people and there's bad people. And if you're not a good person, it doesn't make you a bad person. It just, you might not be good. So you might not care about these issues and care about helping people. What percentage of the world do you think is good, that genuinely cares about this and wants to make a difference?
It's a large philosophical question, and
I think it's less than half. I think there's more people who are indifferent or bad than good. And I hate to say that, but that's just maybe through experience and what I'm seeing out there. Maybe I'm on Twitter too much.
that could do it.
Yeah, that's a tough battle, right?
People are conditioned to their environmental circumstances, right? So I don't think in a lot of cases it's that people are necessarily good or bad. I think that they're in a fight in a lot of cases for dignity, for their health, even for their livelihood or their lives. So I think so many people have just been sort of like getting pummeled by the quote unquote system. I think you know what I mean, for such a long period of time, that it's difficult to get a certain perspective, you know. I mean, we see this historically in so many different times and junctures. And I mean, I think to some degree it might be a sort of a permanent, component of the human condition. But I do think we realize now that this moment in time is particularly challenging for so many working families and people just in general, anyone that has to work for a living, and, and recognizing the struggles, that there are so many examples now of places in the world that have found a better way to protect their citizenry, to protect human health in very practical ways,
But I'm talking about the people like us who are privileged, that who I think are indifferent. I say they're indifferent, not that it doesn't put them in a bad category. I say they're just indifferent.
There is that. I mean, the indifference. I mean, I don't know if you'd call that the same as, apathetic. But I feel like a lot of times it might be to a situation of education, Matt. Like if there's one thing I think that like left, right, center, we could find an enormous amount of agreement on among your listeners or anyone else, is that we do a terrible job of teaching a civic education in this country, and I mean,
that doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of this is,
it's like, I'm not going on Jeopardy.
There's another big conversation, and it's exciting to be able to talk to you about it. But I think, getting back to your point about like what really is the value here of what we're trying to do, and there's that 5%, and there's really supporting the support that lends, the real support that lends to our advocacy groups. But part of me just really wants to talk about what's happening in Milwaukee to Milwaukee Bucks fans, like this fall. You know what I mean? Like, and understanding that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. There's a lot of this sort of, I want to say, I mean, I want to be very careful here for people to recognize like how much I recognize the critical nature of things like getting out the vote, right? We can see what happened in Georgia, the last election cycle, how close it was, right? And the fact that we had that extra vote in the in the Senate. I don't mean to say we, but the fact that the Democrats had that extra.
It's clear that the Republicans and the people who are at the top of that party don't care about the stuff that you're trying to push. So that's fair to say, and that's, I want to get into that a little bit. Like, this is a huge election. If they get in power, if the Republicans get in power and Trump gets in power, how does that change your battle, right? It's easier when that stuff gets to the forefront, but if there's a different regime, then they're all these other stuff is border, and not to say that that's not important, right? But nothing you do in the sneaker is going to go towards fixing the border and immigration. You want to change the lives of the people who are immigrating here legally, who want to be citizens and be productive parts of our society to make their life better so they don't have to work for $7 an hour. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we want to look always through that lens of public health. What's going to improve overall life expectancy? What's going to improve the everyday health of Americans?
Is that the highest thing, the health? I mean, again, how do we know? Like, how do you choose? That's hard for you, even internally, to decide. Where do you focus your efforts and when? That's like I use this example when we talk to people, like have a cancer conversation. There's so many different cancers. How do you know where to put your money and your effort and your energy into?
Yeah. Well, the bigger picture, honestly, is getting back to that education and recognizing, like, if people are at least recognizing that this is about Congress's sort of dereliction of duty, we want to be able to bring that conversation into different realms, right? And if we can get people to at least talk about the actual issues at hand, right? Day-to-day issues, kitchen table issues, then I think that ultimately, based on the reality of who lives in this country and how great the needs are, we're gonna find that it will ultimately improve, the outcome, right?
Yeah.
And healthcare is an obvious one because we've all anecdotally experienced it. Nearly universally have we all experienced some, just remarkable challenge faced in the face of a for-profit healthcare industry.
I can tell you that my experience has been very challenging, and I haven't even had any real challenging experiences, right? So it's like, what would happen if I do have to deal with that? It's I can't even imagine. It would be frightening, and that's for someone like me who's, again, I don't have a wealth of money, but I have means and family and circle, and so I don't really have to worry about that. But there are millions of people in America who do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got the election year coming up, so election, great time to get education out there for voting, but education on issues. Are we going to see common enemy out there? What type of plan do you have for this year as far as marrying what you're trying to do with election?
We've got a lot riding on our current fundraising goals, obviously, with how broad we can make our presence known. But we certainly intend to focus on important congressional districts across the country, which is just so funny because it happens to coincide in so many different, like, basketball hotbeds. But yeah, we want to help kind of turn the tables a little bit, or turn the tide on the number of supporters in the House and Senate for these types of bills that we support, like Medicare for all and raising the federal minimum wage.
What's the fundraising goal?
The fundraising goal is $2.5 million.
$2.5 million.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, I don't have $2.5 million. It's easy for me to spend.
We share in common.
Yeah, it's easy to spend other people's money. But you look at someone like Elon Musk, who bought Twitter for hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, I would think that there's got to be someone out there who believes in this that would want to help support that raise. Is it? I mean, what's the likelihood that happens as to the likelihood that you have to sell, a lot of sneakers, or just getting partnerships or funds raised from a number of people? Where do you think that could happen? Or are you even going? I mean, is it going after someone like that?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that resonate with our message for sure. And some of those are people with means, fortunately, and they recognize sort of the magnification effect of a brand coming into this space, right? And like carving out market share in this space, and then kind of creating this whole new potential revenue bucket for these great nonprofit partners and nonprofit partners in the future, and getting educational messages out there. And again, I want to sort of like put the disclaimer out there among all this conversation that we recognize at the end of the day, we still have to have a great shoe, which we do have, right? And a versatile shoe. We know it's going to be a small group of individuals. Some of those folks we're already talking to that support what we're doing and can have patience for a brand that recognizes like a big picture and a longer term picture.
But you don't have to sell millions of sneakers to be successful because of the mission that you're on, right? Obviously, you want to sell as many sneakers as you can go, but you don't have to fight with the Nikes and the Adidas and the Under Armours to get what you need because of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, we need to be profitable. Right. And there's these days in the footwear industry and in the apparel industry, people understand there's a notion of economies of scale. Like a lot of this sort of like artisanal / craftsman sort of like small factories, like, you know, of yesteryear, that ship has sailed because of, I don't know, consumer demand and the consumer society really. And, you know, all the offshoring that's gone along with that over the past half century. But we have to, the way that a lot of footwear factories work in the athletic spaces is that you have to hit certain minimum quantities in order to make sure that the staff can be, you know, trained and retained in a certain way. Like there's got to be a certain amount of revenue coming in for the factory groups too. So there are restrictions, I guess you could say, from a supply chain standpoint as to like what threshold you want to get over to be sustainable in that sense. Right. So that's one aspect of it. And then just general profitability is an aspect of it. But, you know, we're well aware, obviously there's the notion of public versus private companies, but we're well aware that most of our competitors are paying their executive teams, you know, 2, 3, 4, 500 and up times more than their average employee, right? And so that's money going somewhere.
That's not just a barrel.
Oh, 100%. No, but there are some particularly egregious ratios in our industry.
You know, what was it? Who was the guy? Dan, who had the 70,000 company, his floor. He got into trouble. I tried to have him on the show. Man, I forgot his name. I don't remember his name. Anyway, he was trying to treat his employees good. He got into some hot water. Dan Price.
Oh, from Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gravity's Ventures, maybe.
He had some issues, legal issues that it was separate from the company. And I don't know that you need to go to 70,000, but you need to pay, them a wage, and especially like it's easy. It's hard for me to say because I don't have money to pay employees this stuff. Otherwise, I would. But when you talk about that other people are making so much money, and it's such a disparity between the people who are actually, you can't do this business because you could cut those executives and the company will be fine. That's the workers. You got no company. You got no profit.
No, that's the wildest fact of it all is that John Donahoe, the CEO of Nike. I mean, if he called out sick one day, very little would change, right? But if you had a guy call out sick from the warehouse, right, you will notice it as a customer. Yeah. So that reality is.
That's not to say that the people don't deserve money at the top. They're the ones who come up with the idea, right? I mean, there's a hierarchy of stuff, but it's just so way out of whack.
Absolutely, and the reality is that there's a lot of research and evidence that shows that more unequal societies are less healthy. It's incredible book. It's sort of like one of my Bibles called the Spirit Level, which talks just specifically about that. Yeah. And there's a lot of ways to measure that inequality. So I mean, the truth is that if you reduce, that top tier income, and one of those functions is through taxation, obviously, that it improves everyone's situation.
Yeah, I had a conversation with someone complaining about all the taxes they pay, and I said, well, that means you made a lot of money, right? For the common people. Then you got the other people who are making all this money, and Tax the church. That's what I say. Let's see what happens there. But that's again another conversation. That's me, jumping out on my soapbox here. Shark Tank. Have you done anything like that? Any type of pitches to either get visibility or raise capital? There's a good cause on this. I think there's probably a lot of events or different types of opportunity for that. What's your thoughts on that?
Fans of the Shark Tank. It's an awesome, exciting show. We submitted an application.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, we definitely think that's a great route. I mean, it's
got to be Cuban, right?
What's that? Oh yeah, for sure. Cuban's. I mean, he's really interesting. I heard him on Pat Bev's podcast recently talking about this healthcare company that he started. Like, he's aware. I mean, he's a sharp dude. He gets the bigger problems. Yeah. I think he's kind of a here and now kind of guy. Let's reality, like, things suck right now. Let's figure out how to solve things today. I'm going to get, I invested in this company. We're going to get cheaper drug prices for your grandma, like that kind of thing. Yeah. There's a really interesting company that we came across recently called Bobby, which does like organic infant, like baby formula. Okay. And they actually partnered with another one of our nonprofits, Paid Leave for All. And their spokesperson's Naomi Osaka. And she was talking about, just recognizing the challenges of a mother going in and out of the workforce, and how so many millions of Americans don't have access to paid family or medical leave. And this company, Bobby, was kind of saying, like, listen, we're giving away this amount of money to X amount of customers to this grant, or fundraising that we're doing, recognizing, like, yeah, we're kind of stuck right now. We don't have enough members of Congress to sort of push through the Family Act, Senator Gillibrand. So we're going to try to do the here and the now while also keeping in mind the bigger picture. Right. And I mean, it's a valuable approach. Like, we do have to realize, like, again, there's a like feeding America is saving lives. Like food banks are saving lives on a day-to-day basis. We're just trying to figure out, like, what's the best way to sort of navigate the daily needs, or these other companies are trying to say, how do we navigate the daily needs? And that's kind of what a Cuban would be talking about. But we're trying to say, like, yes, but also let's make sure people are aware that the situation today is what we've made it. We've made this through the people that we elected,
He replies to emails. I got a reply from his, I don't know if it was him or not, but somebody from his email replied the other day with a short no to me. I was like, oh, I've emailed him 3 or 4 times, and finally he just wrote no. I was inviting him to a Super Bowl party in Vegas. I don't know if he was saying no to that, no to coming on the Wolff Den. He didn't elaborate, but I'm going to send him this episode and see what he thinks. Maybe he'll reply. I'll share.
God bless him.
Yeah.
God bless you. Thank you.
About, time and paid time. Is there anything more ridiculous than unlimited vacation time from a company?
Yeah, it's
unlimited vacation. Can't ever take off. Oh no, I can't. I took off. Dude, you have unlimited vacation. They know that people are afraid to take it, so they give it to. Give me 75 days off, so I can't run out of days off. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'm either going to do my job or not. Right?
It's the corporate sneakiness. Absolutely.
It's crazy to me. I lost my train of thought when I.
No, it's all right. It's like when they have the dry, Google has a dry cleaning service or whatever, or like all the incentives. It's basically, you don't have to leave.
Yeah. Oh, they keep you there from that. I mean, I'm telling you, I know people who will stay at a company 10, 15 years because you get an extra week of vacation time. It's smart of them, but then it's also, the average person. I think the average consumer or employee is not an educated one, and so they don't understand that. But I'd be taking off, I'm not going to take advantage of it, but if I want to take off and I have to take off, I take off and I get my job done. I mean, that's the way it should be.
Absolutely.
Right. Man, I had something I wanted to ask you, and now I got blindsided by my tangent that I went into there. With this shoe. Oh, here's what it was. You get your $2.5 million. Now what?
Well, we've got a budget for staff. We've got a budget for marketing. We've got a budget for product costs. Okay. That's kind of calibrated to optimizing what we want to do.
When do we see another color of sneaker or version of sneaker? Or is this pretty set for the short term?
For the short term, well, I'd say for the next 3-4 months, we're rallying around our single colorway. But depending on how our fundraise goes this month, in fact, we'd be hoping to get an additional colorway at least,
Yeah,
if
that's
not
still
more.
short term. Maybe get something in 24. I mean, to me, if you have a new sneaker, that's that's still okay, I would think. How
Yeah.
many what percentage of customers do you think will eventually buy your sneaker without knowing what it means, and they might not support it? Is that going to be is that going to be 3%, or do you think you could get up to, if you have the right funding and the influencer and the marketing, could that get up to 15-20%?
Well, we talked about this a little earlier, but you reminded me. I did have a talk with another entrepreneur early on who was on Shark Tank, and was talking. They've got a mission-based company, and they were talking about doing these surveys, consumer surveys, focus groups, asking what people thought about the mission, and no one, it was basically came back. No one cared. Right?
Yeah,
It was like,
and some of these focus groups, it doesn't matter. You're just like, it matters for the ones that do care, who might never fill that out, who don't even, someone who might hear this, who never even thinks about buying your sneaker. I'm not buying a $140 sneaker, but I like what you're doing.
yeah,
I'm going to go on your website, and I go to your website, right, and I see Medicare for All Act, Family Act, Raise the Wage Act, George Floyd Justice and Policing, For the People, assault weapons ban, College for All. So those are just, I named just a few. So if you want more, go to the website. But you don't have to sell a sneaker to move your mission forward. For everyone, you have to sell sneakers, but that's not what it's what I love about it. Is it's not, look, you're here to make money. You need to make money to keep the company going. You need to make money so you can focus on this and not have to get another job, right? I mean, we all know that, but there's a bigger story to this, and that's what I get behind, and that's what I think others can get behind, whether they want to buy a sneaker or not.
I apprate that.
Maybe they could buy a sneaker and send it to someone they know is against everything you believe in, right? Right? Isn't that what people were doing? Like, they were donating on behalf of these people who completely didn't believe in abortion to abortion clinic, right? Isn't that a thing?
I'm not familiar, but I do know that among friends that are not as supportive or are vehemently opposed to some of these, folks from like with a libertarian bent, for example, some confused souls. There is still a certain appreciation for the authenticity of it. Yeah. I think I had a lot of conversations. I was in Southern California, in San Diego for 15 years. I don't think people know that there's kind of a real strong mass of conservatism, coming out of there's the big military presence there, et cetera, but I had a lot of conversations with conservative friends, who were about, you going back to Bernie Sanders and saying like, listen, I don't like anything that he stands for, but I sure love him. I mean, I love that he's real. And like, that's kind of what this whole thing was about. Like, okay, yes. Do people need to buy basketball shoes? Yes. Right. Like, it's hard to play barefoot. It's hard to play in Chuck Taylors. It's hard to play in dress shoes. So yes, there is a need for a great supportive basketball shoe with a nice cushion that sole and great traction. Like, you have to have that, and we wanted to be a better version of that shoe, and we feel like better in the sense of like, can we really talk about something real? And this is this notion of like corporate social responsibility 2.0. And I don't know. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that I think will get the shoe and then learn later, wait, what? Like, for better or for worse. I'm sure that, we're trying to take that into account when we're calculating our future return rate.
And if they burn it out of spite, that's even double better for you.
No, yeah, all press is good press. But the bigger picture really is just how much basketball is part of this like American cultural mosaic, and we want the stories that we tell to be about these communities. We're going to work in policymakers. We're going to work in these shared problems of public health that are concerns on every court in America. But dude, I feel like if we have the stories being told in Detroit, in Colorado Springs, and San Jose, and we really focus on the people in those communities. Seeing, we want to do screenings. We're going to do events when we launch in every one of these cities. That's going to be a way to build, organic support.
Yeah. Where are you? Where do you live? I don't think you mentioned that.
Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, in Brooklyn. Yeah. Go to Rucker Park and get an event at Rucker Park.
Oh yeah. Brooklyn's going to be, Brooklyn's too easy. I mean, the connectivity here, the basketball culture in the city is just, it's insane. Yeah.
Again, I forgot. I had something on the tip of my tongue and was going to. Man, this is the thing of live. I knew I had something again. I was about to ask you, and then.
Well, maybe was it about the Nets?
I don't. I grew up a Nets, rooting for the Nets and Knicks. I'm a Sonic fan because of Dale Ellis, but moving to it was so easy for me to get to the Nets arena. And the Knicks, MSG is iconic. I have been to playoff games in both. We won lotteries and had like small season passes. But the NBA I'm more college now. I think your best bet is even just like maybe WNBA.
Absolutely.
A big push for social justice. I know what I wanted to ask you. They've done a big push for social justice. My question to you is, I mentioned it sort of for me, but what was it that really changed you and why to get to who you are and what you're trying to accomplish? Why is this important to you? When did that sort of click for you, and why?
I grew up very inspired by heroes in the civil rights movement. I mean, I think that's like going way, way back, and that's always sort of oriented me to those movements and improving people's dignities, improving dignity in this country. And I've been an activist and a volunteer with several advocacy groups going back to middle school and high school. But it was really like when I was deep into my career, it was really during the summer of 2020. And the protests, and also specifically the response of the Milwaukee Bucks, when they sort of, I think unintentionally, well, I should clarify, not unintentionally, maybe the ramifications might have been somewhat unintentional, but when they decided to have their, just to basically forgo playing.
But that was one game. Like, one of the things I said about it at the time was, yeah, that's nice. It's good publicity. What did they do after that to help the movement?
Yeah, I mean, that was part of the motivation.
I'm asking that. I don't know the answer to that, but
sure.
I think that's part of the problem. Is it's good to have a commercial. It's good to have a day. It's good to have a shirt.
Yeah.
But what are you really doing to help the cause?
You brought that up right at the top. We've talked to a few NBA players who've shown great interest and have not been reluctant because of what we're trying to do. I think.
Who would you choose? You could pick one. Who are you choosing today? Who do you choose?
Oh man, that's tough. I don't know if you're gonna get that out of me. I don't know if there's just one really. I mean, we've talked to Jaylen Brown's agent because I do like the fact that he's, he kind of moves to the beat of his own drum. But I also don't hear him necessarily talking about the same issues.
He's a quiet guy. You don't really talking about anything. So, but I guess we know who you're not going to bring on.
Who's that? Oh my God. I mean, listen, everybody can change, man. I think, it's not one guy. I mean, and I want to be careful because we're still in talks with some folks that might, that might end up either investing.
I mean, obviously LeBron is a big name, and he stands for stuff you think. I don't know if he's good enough. If it is, but I'm thinking like someone like Chris Paul, who seems to be such a good guy, but he's not very vocal about things.
Former president of the union, yeah.
Right. So you have to, balance between someone who's very visible, who's going to get the word out, and someone who fits who you are, and then maybe get them to get the word out.
Yeah, there's also this reality of the demand generation, for lack of a like less corporate term, but how many of these folks can really, like, if they put their mind to it, sell, tens of thousands of shoes,
Can they move?
right? Like the way yeah, it's so hit or miss. I mean, we see what Melo's done to some degree. I mean, that's been a pretty successful program with a partnership that he has.
Yeah.
I'll mention Puma, because I worked for them before, but like it's still hard to quantify exactly. I don't think I don't think that was a game, I don't think Puma was. I'm sure they were surprised, but I don't think it was a game changer necessarily with how many pairs they ended up selling.
Right.
And so LeBron is probably one of those few folks. And by the way, like, he gets a lot of cred for his school in Akron, like the way that's being managed, the way that he's sort of augmented an existing public institution. Like he's that it's considered very successhple, a very successful form of philanthropy.
I bought some sneakers for my trip. These are the LeBrons. They're kind of like ugly cool. I like them. I kind of like them. I don't know why. I bought KDs because they were cheap. This has the Velcro up. It didn't feel like a great sneaker to play basketball in. And then I had the old school Jordans when they went, on sale. Do you have a sneaker that you consider like the coolest ever? I have them in my garage. I'm not going to waste the time to go get them. But the old Jordans with like the reflector top here that was like purple, and that was my favorite. I bought a used pair. I just loved them. Was there a sneaker that you saw that you were just like, this is just a cool sneaker? It didn't even matter about if you owned it or if you ever wore them.
Well, Rod, our product guy, will love this because he was involved. But I mean, going back to my childhood, like D Brown's pump, that was it for me. That was the coolest. We were just talking about pumps the other day.
What do you think about the movie Air?
So I'm like, I went to film school. It doesn't say much, but it does, always give me that kind of like, I always like enter movies with the snobbiness, and then halfway through I'm like, just enjoy it. It's fine. It's a nice story, right? And I love the empowerment of MJ's mom and like sort of having her angle, but like, I don't know, it's not lighting the world on fire. It just seemed like a fun story. Yeah, it was entertaining. What's that? Did I watch Barbie? Yeah, absolutely. I watched Barbie with my kids, actually.
Yeah, I thought they just kind of went over the top, but I like the story of it. I feel like there could be a sequel. I just think they tried to appeal to too many people. Storyline. They should just stuck with that and not gone all crazy.
It could have been better. It felt like at certain points maybe they just pushed things through. But I mean, I just love the fact that it's this like cultural phenomenon that has to do with the movies. It felt so long. I mean, Oppenheimer to some degree too. Like it felt like it had been. I can't even remember now. Like, what was the last time that we heard so much about like people going to the movies for this? Like, for it was just universal. It's kind of fun when that's a sort of a healthy thing, like a fun commercial thing versus like something that was like a national tragedy. Like that seems to be the only time the country tends to pull together on something.
Aside from Hoosiers, which is, I think anyone would say, is the best basketball movie out there, what's another favorite you have that people might not know about?
Oh my gosh. I'd love to give a plug to my good friend Jim Strauss, who's a filmmaker who made a basketball movie about a girls' high school basketball team starring Sam Rockwell, but I'm blanking on the name of the movie right now. Yeah, okay.
I love Blue Chips.
Blue Chips is awesome. Yeah, that's a great one. He Got Game, I don't think would surprise anybody, but I love Ray Allen in that. Like he really surprised.
A lot of good basketball movies, like funny and entertaining, and then serious. And
exactly.
The Champions with Woody Harrelson was very funny too.
I didn't see that yet, but you enjoyed that?
Michael Jordan or LeBron James? Who's the greatest? of the
Oh,
two.
is this, are we saying officially or just between those two?
Between those two.
um, yeah, I mean, I'm like, so I'm 42, so I'm kind of like in the perfect position to have enjoyed both of their careers a lot. But I cried when LeBron won for Cleveland, like legit, like tears. So I think it's that because I shared that emotional experience with them. I got so overwhelmed, like so involved in that story. I think it's got to be LeBron and just, I don't know, man.
He's
Different,
unstoppable.
yeah.
Isn't he unstoppable?
Yeah, I mean, it's inspiring. I mean, different cultural relevancy, and I'm so practical. Like I've seen enough of MJ just as MJ and like his personality. You know, like LeBron's fallible. Don't get me wrong; he is gas all the time, and like can be a jerk. But like, he just just his. It's just inspirational, man. Like that's all there is to it.
Give me your Mount Rushmore of basketball. It could either be the 4 greatest that you think are the 4 best, or just your 4 favorite?
Man, you want to start?
I have Dale Ellis is my favorite player, but I put LeBron up there, and I don't even know. I never even thought about it. I think Oscar Robertson and probably Will.
Okay.
MJ,
Okay.
And well, MJ LeBron. I'd say MJ LeBron. The best is MJ LeBron, Wilt, and Oscar Robertson. I would put mine.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to argue with that.
Oscar, that's just,
I think Kareem for me is absolutely in there. We got to just, I guess,
better than what Wilt.
Man, that's tough. I get in a lot of trouble.
Dominating. Kareem was unbelievable, but Wilt just felt more dominating. I don't know. And then you got to even put Bill Russell out there, who arguably could be better than Wilt. So it's so hard.
Yeah, maybe this has to be because I have to. Basketball is so emotional for me. I have to connect it to games that I've actually witnessed, and I'm old enough to still remember watching Kareem.
Yeah.
And so I think for I guess for my contemporaries, I still think Kareem can slot in there.
And Kareem is actually would be a good spokesperson for the company, an ambassador for the company, because he seems to be on the on the fringe of wanting to do good.
Very much so, and extremely like educated on these topics too. Yeah. And oh my God, and Bill Russell. I mean, both of them are civil rights icons to this day.
How about your favorite? Give me your favorite instead of the best. It's always hard to do your best.
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm an enormous fan of Jokic. I mean, that's no surprise. But like, he's just one of these guys that you never get tired of watching.
Yeah.
Love Jokic. Curry, I can get tired of watching. Usually have been rooting against the Warriors because it's just when there's just with Clay and Curry in the backcourt at some point, even though I love Curry's story, and it is still, I mean, even if your dad is Dale Curry based on his size, like I still think it's still an underdog story.
It's unbelievable what he can do on the basketball court. I'm amazed by it.
So he is still. I guess I would go back to the Rushmore game. Like he's there for me. I mean, because he's a cultural marker for the last decade. Yeah. I mean, almost more than LeBron for the game of basketball.
Yeah. I think you might got 4. We're gonna let you out of the Wolff Den with the same question everybody gets. You have 24 hours to spend with anybody in the world. You can't be related to them, and they have to be alive. Who are you choosing, and what would you guys do?
Oh my goodness! I knew it was coming. Just for the sake of not like staring off into space for too long, I'm going to go with Ralph Nader.
Ralph Nader,
one of my heroes. Yes,
wow.
and he is alive. More than alive and kicking. His podcast and radio show. Man, talk about inspirational. I've learned so much from that over the last 7-8 years.
Political landscape. He was a third-party guy, right?
Yeah, for a few years, he for a few election cycles, absolutely. And I mean, he saved him and his group of attorneys and advocates have saved tens of thousands of lives through different.
I got to look into it.
Yeah, well, it was just recently the 50th anniversary of his first book, which was called Unsafe at Any Speed, where it's kind of this huge expose on General Motors through the 50s and 60s, where they knowingly, designed like knowingly left out seatbelts and other design components that they knew were
Crazy.
we're going to increase risk of casualties and fatalities.
What would you ask him? You can ask him anything. You're going to be spending time with him, but what would you ask him? What would be the most important thing you want to know? And by the way, we use this with the assumption that they're going to give you an honest answer, right? We're talking to like everyone asks has these wishes to be with a politician and celebrities, and you're like, you can't just assume they're going to be honest with you. But they're saying if they were going to give you an honest answer, what would you like to know from him?
How did they keep going? Yeah, he's
3%, right? I mean, you get 3% now. People are dropping out. You got that. It's hard. I get it. And why does he care now? He's got to be in his 80s, right?
90s.
So why does he care now? I mean, we know why. It's the same reason why you do what you do and why I'm trying to accomplish some of the things that I am. But it's impressive, to say the least, right?
For sure. I think we've talked sometimes about what really the common enemy might be, and sometimes I feel like it's like inertia, right? Like to get up every day and still try to remain like, try to be a good person, try to stay focused on protecting and caring for your family and for your loved ones, but also trying to keep this big picture in mind and not getting too bogged down. And I say that with the utmost respect to the tens of millions of Americans and people across the world that simply don't have the capacity, to do that. And I've been blessed in so many ways to have a little bit of energy still left.
Me too. I mean, we talk about the privilege that we have, and I don't apologize for it, but I acknowledge it. I think it's important to acknowledge it. I don't think we have to apologize for it, but it's important to acknowledge it and to understand that our journey is different than other people's journeys.
Yeah, well, maybe I can mention one last thing before we wrap up. But there's a great book out. I think the professor's name is Michael Sandel, but the book is called The Tyranny of Merit, and it talks about this very fact, which is especially among the Ivy Leaguers and high earners, that there's a sense of I'm here because of the work ethic. And this applies to a lot of the situation with basketball, with a lot of professional athletes, and we can look at Kobe as an example of certainly an ethical, a work ethic standard kind of that surpasses all others, and certainly brought a whole different dimension to his game. But I think
look it up, but it's up here. The Tyranny of Merit: What's Become of the Common Good by Michael Sandel.
But it's what you're talking about.
I always recommend The Go-Giver. I don't know if you ever heard of it, by Bob Berg and John David Mann. It's a very Who Moved My Cheese type of book.
Okay.
To get you, it's good. You should definitely read it. It's got the same message as sort of what you're trying to do. We should be good and help people because we can and because that's the right thing to do. And that's really the message that I think is the right thing to do. You do it. We all can do it in some capacity. We all can do better, myself included. I know that, and I try and do that. That's a goal of mine, is to try and do that. But check out commonenemy.com. Buy a pair of sneakers. Buy a pair of sneakers for someone who doesn't support these things. Buy a pair of sneakers to support. But even if you don't buy a pair of sneakers, go to the website, look at the partners, go to their websites, get more information about how you can help. Everybody can help each of these organizations and partners without spending a dime.
Yes, absolutely, Matt. We do offer discounts for first responders, educators, government employees, and students.
Perfect. I love it. I love what you're doing. I hope to be help wherever I can and be a part of it. Happy to come with my sneakers and play. Let's get a charity game going.
I love it. I hope you enjoy them on the court, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna wear them this weekend, and I'll let you know. I should be getting back to playing. But charity basketball event. Let's get them all wearing these sneakers, and that'll be it. You can wear whatever clothing you want. The way you're going to know who's on your team is whether they're wearing a pair of black sneakers or a pair of non-black sneakers. And we'll have people passing it to the wrong people.
Exactly.
Love it. Great to meet you, and really appreciate your time here today. CommonEnemy.com. Don't glance over this. This is a company that's doing meaningful things, and we need to help them any way we can.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure.